After the Chicago Bears preseason opener against the Miami Dolphins, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to who might be on the chopping block before the regular season kicks off. The team has been busy making moves, especially in the secondary, where injuries have piled up like never before. Just last night, news broke that the Bears are signing 3 new players: Mark Perry, a safety, and 2 quarterbacks, Mike Gardner and Caleb Hayes. That's a clear sign they're trying to patch up some holes and keep the depth intact, especially with 6 defensive backs sidelined due to various injuries. When you're dealing with that many losses in one position group, it forces the front office to act fast, bringing in fresh legs to compete and hopefully fill those gaps. Now, signing 3 players doesn't just happen in a vacuum. For every new face that arrives, there's got to be someone else making way. Whether it's putting a player on injured reserve or outright cutting 3 guys, these new signings inevitably mean the roster is going to get trimmed down, and that's where all the cut candidates come in. There's no doubt the Bears have some difficult decisions ahead. Some players who seemed like locks at the start of camp suddenly find themselves fighting for survival, while others have slipped under the radar, either due to injury setbacks or underwhelming performances on the field. Starting off with Tyler Scott, it's hard to ignore the fact that his stock has dropped considerably. Watching him during the preseason game, he looked somewhat disconnected from the action, often standing alone on the sideline during plays. He managed to snag a catch, 7 yards over the middle, but beyond that, there wasn't much that screamed, "Keep me." What's more concerning is how far down the depth chart he has fallen compared to others who share a similar skill set. Last season, he barely saw the field, which was already a warning sign, especially when you consider he was behind players like DeAndre Carter and Colin Johnson, neither of whom are household names. The coaching change hasn't done him any favors either, and now with guys like DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Zakaria Watson, and Keelan Burton all making noise, Scott seems to be hanging on by a thread. Even Maurice Alexander, who doubles as a return man, is grabbing more reps and showing flashes that Scott hasn't matched. Unless something drastic changes, it's tough to envision Tyler Scott cracking the final 53-man roster this year. Maybe he's better off looking for a fresh start somewhere else, where he can reboot his career and get more opportunities. Switching gears to the defensive side, Jonathan Ford was a player I had some hope for coming into camp. Last year, when he was scooped off the Packers practice squad, there was potential in his ability to help shore up the run defense. He flashed at times and showed he could contribute, especially when Andrew Billings went down with an injury. However, the preseason opener didn't go well for Ford at all. While it's only one game, and the sample size is limited, he didn't make enough plays to justify a spot on a very crowded defensive tackle roster. His best moments came as a pass rusher, which is ironic considering his role should primarily focus on stopping the run. Playing nearly 50 snaps in sweltering heat showed he has the stamina and toughness, but the results just weren't there. When you consider the competition, it's clear that Ford is behind guys like Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings, and even Chris Williams, who many think is the better option right now. Then there's Zach Pickens, who, despite some rough moments, looked more effective in the opener and even recorded a sack. With Shamar Turner injured but expected to return, the Bears could carry 5 healthy defensive tackles on the roster, leaving Ford and Pickens in a tough spot, possibly both facing cuts if Turner comes back strong. Then there's Trey Flowers, a name that's been around for a while and came into camp with some expectations. Pro Football Focus gave him a decent grade for the preseason game, noting that he improved as the contest went on. But early on, when facing the Dolphins' top receivers, Flowers was getting exposed, often trailing behind his man. He did manage a few pass breakups and bounce back to some extent, but the signs are hard to ignore. He just looks slower than he used to. The game has passed him by in many ways. Injuries to corners like Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and Terrell Smith might keep Flowers on the roster initially, as depth is thin, but once the team gets healthy, his place is far from guaranteed. Watching the Dolphins' offense scheme around him left the impression that his impact at the NFL level has diminished, and the Bears will likely be looking for younger, more explosive players to fill that role moving forward. Another player in the mix is Doug Kramer, currently sidelined with an injury. The tricky part for Kramer is that he's the backup center, but the Bears don't have a true, reliable backup at that position. Ryan Bates has stepped in and even started at center during the preseason opener, showing he has the versatility to play guard and center. Bates also stayed healthy throughout camp, which is a big plus compared to Kramer, who has battled injuries multiple times. The fact that Bates was trusted to start in a preseason game says a lot about the coaching staff's confidence in him. Meanwhile, Kramer hasn't been able to carve out a fullback role, which might have helped extend his stay on the team. Without that niche, his value diminishes because he's too small to be an effective guard and is mostly limited to center duties. Luke Newman has also shown promise before leaving the preseason game early due to a concussion, making the backup interior line competition even more crowded. Kramer's injury situation combined with Bates' emergence could put him on the outside, looking in as the Bears finalize their roster. Lastly, J.P. Richardson is a name worth mentioning. He's had a decent training camp, but even he seems to have slowed down a bit and didn't make a huge impact during the preseason opener. When you're a fringe player trying to break into a deep wide receiver room, every snap counts. Unfortunately for Richardson, other undrafted free agents like Jade A. Walker have made more noticeable plays. Walker, with his bigger frame and downfield threat ability, has given the Bears a different kind of weapon, something that Richardson's more shifty, slot-style play doesn't quite match. With so many similar receivers already on the roster, Richardson's path to a roster spot looks narrow. Dion Duvin, who doubles as the team's punt returner, Maurice Alexander, and even other slot options seem to be ahead of him on the depth chart. There's still time to turn it around, but the margin for error is razor thin, especially with other guys making big plays and grabbing attention early in the preseason. So as things stand, the Bears are juggling injuries, competition, and roster spots with some serious questions looming over these players. The preseason opener was just the beginning, but it painted a pretty clear picture of who might be struggling to hang on. Whether it's the wide receivers fighting for their place, defensive tackles trying to prove their worth, or depth players stepping up amid injuries, every snap and every practice counts more than ever. The team's decisions in the coming weeks will shape their entire season, and the pressure is on these players to show they belong. Digging deeper into the Bears roster situation, the ongoing injury issues combined with underwhelming preseason performances have forced the coaching staff and front office into a real balancing act. The ripple effects of those injuries are felt across multiple positions, but none more so than in the defensive backfield and the linebacker group. When you're missing 6 defensive backs, it's not just about filling spots on the roster. It's about maintaining cohesion, communication, and trust in a group that's expected to be the last line of defense. The signings of Mark Perry, Mike Gardner, and Caleb Hayes highlight that urgency. These guys aren't just warm bodies. They represent an attempt to plug holes and create competition in a group that's already thin and battered. But the question is whether these new additions can rise to the challenge and show enough to secure a place in the final cut. Looking at the secondary, it's a volatile position right now. Injuries to key players have disrupted continuity, and the team has to lean heavily on younger or less experienced players. That creates a lot of pressure on guys who are already fighting for roster spots to step up immediately. It's not just about raw talent. It's about readiness and adaptability. Sometimes the difference between making the team and being cut comes down to mental toughness and ability to grasp the defensive scheme quickly. Those nuances will play a major role in who survives the next roster cut wave. Meanwhile, on the defensive line, the competition remains fierce. Jonathan Ford's struggles in the preseason opener were a real setback, especially considering the crowded nature of the defensive tackle room. With veterans like Grady Jarrett and Andrew Billings commanding spots, and promising players like Chris Williams and Zach Pickens showing flashes, Ford's window to impress is closing fast. The Bears' defensive front relies heavily on versatility, with players expected to both stop the run and rush the passer effectively. Ford's apparent difficulty in excelling as a run defender doesn't bode well in a defense that prioritizes that trait at his position. If he can't find ways to contribute consistently, he risks being one of the first cuts as the team pares down its roster. Trey Flowers, despite his experience and the credit for battling through injuries and tough matchups, seems to be entering the twilight of his NFL career. The preseason game was a mixed bag. His slow starts and difficulties keeping up with speedy receivers raise concerns about whether he can still perform at the level the Bears require. His value to the team, right now, might be more about veteran presence and depth than true starting ability. With a secondary group plagued by injuries, Flowers may sneak onto the roster simply because the alternatives aren't quite ready or as proven. However, as the injured corners heal and the team regains strength, the likelihood of Flowers holding onto a spot diminishes. The Bears are a team in transition, and sometimes that means moving on for veterans whose best days are behind them to make room for younger, more dynamic players. On the offensive line, the competition to back up the center spot is heating up. Doug Kramer's injuries have opened the door for Ryan Bates, who has taken advantage by showing versatility and durability, two prized qualities for backup linemen. Bates' ability to play multiple interior line positions is a major asset for the Bears, giving them flexibility during games and throughout the grueling NFL season. Durability cannot be overstated here. Injuries can strike at any moment, and having a reliable player who can slide in seamlessly is crucial. Meanwhile, Luke Newman's solid preseason performance before his concussion only adds another contender to the mix. With multiple players vying for limited spots, Kramer's current health status and limited role could leave him vulnerable. The lack of a defined role beyond center, such as fullback or guard, further restricts his value, especially when compared to Bates' broader skill set and healthier status. When it comes to the wide receiver core, the Bears have a crowded room filled with players vying for just a handful of spots. J.P. Richardson's struggle to separate himself from the pack highlights how competitive it is. His style as a shifty slot receiver is common across the roster, and that lack of differentiation can make it difficult to stand out. Jade A. Walker's bigger frame and demonstrated ability to make downfield plays give him an edge, and he's already made more impact plays during the preseason. Coaches look for players who can fill unique roles or provide versatility, and Walker's size and skill set could give him an edge in that regard. Meanwhile, players like Dion Duvin, who also serve as return specialists, increase their value by contributing on special teams, a key factor in roster decisions. Maurice Alexander's involvement earlier in the game is another example of players carving out niches that go beyond traditional receiver duties. For Richardson, it's a battle uphill. He hasn't made enough plays or shown enough versatility to guarantee his place, and with so many others stepping up, his roster spot is far from secure. Special teams often serve as the deciding factor for borderline players, and the Bears coaching staff is no exception in valuing those contributions. Players who can excel in coverage units, return teams, or blocking on special teams frequently earn roster spots, even when their offensive or defensive snaps are limited. This is where players like Maurice Alexander and Dion Duvin might solidify their value. Their ability to impact the game outside of their primary positions increases their chances of sticking around. For many of these bubble players, excelling on special teams is the path to making the final cut, which means they must not only play well during their limited offensive or defensive snaps, but also bring relentless energy and discipline to the less glamorous but vital special teams units. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The sports world is buzzing with speculation following the confirmation of a trade between the Chicago Bears and the Cleveland Browns, a move that has sent waves of excitement and curiosity throughout the NFL community. According to multiple insider sources, the Bears have officially sealed a deal to acquire Myles Garrett, one of the most dominant defensive ends in recent years. This potential blockbuster trade has sparked a frenzy of rumors about the possible impact Garrett could have on Chicago's defensive lineup, which has struggled to find consistency over the past few seasons. Analysts are already debating how Garrett's presence might reshape the Bears' defense, and there's intense anticipation about how the team's coaching staff will integrate such a high-caliber player. While the details of the exchange remain closely guarded, speculation about the terms, likely involving draft picks and promising young players, dominates sports talk shows and social media platforms. The excitement is palpable as fans of the Bears eagerly await the official announcement of Garrett's arrival, while Browns supporters wrestle with the implications of losing a defensive cornerstone. This rumble of change might just redefine the competitive dynamics of the NFC North, raising questions about how rival teams will respond to Chicago's newly fortified defense. The trade, though confirmed, remains shrouded in intrigue, fueling endless debates about who truly benefits most from this major NFL shuffle. Inside NFL circles, the confirmation of Myles Garrett's move to the Bears is being viewed as a seismic shift, with many insiders speculating on the strategic motivations behind the Browns' decision to part ways with such an elite talent. The trade raises numerous questions about Cleveland's future defensive strategy and whether the Browns intend to rebuild or retool their roster for long-term success. Meanwhile, the Bears' front office appears committed to making a bold statement by acquiring a player who has repeatedly proven himself as a game-changer and a consistent threat to opposing offenses. This rumor has been building for weeks, and now that the trade is confirmed, all eyes are on Chicago to see how quickly Garrett can adapt to his new environment. Experts believe the Bears may need to overhaul their defensive schemes to maximize Garrett's unique skill set, which combines explosive pass-rushing ability with rare athleticism and physicality. Social media has exploded with fan reactions, ranging from jubilation among Bears supporters hopeful for a playoff resurgence to Browns fans expressing concern over the team's apparent loss of defensive firepower. The situation remains fluid, as further details about the trade package and Garrett's contract extension are expected to surface soon, adding layers of intrigue to an already compelling narrative. Rumors swirling around the NFL also suggest that this trade might not be the end of a series of moves between the Bears and Browns, hinting at a deeper strategic partnership or a cascade of trades that could reshape rosters beyond just these two teams. Speculation abounds that Chicago's aggressive pursuit of Garrett signals a broader ambition to return to playoff contention after several disappointing seasons. Analysts are theorizing that the Bears see Garrett not just as a star player, but as a potential cornerstone for a defense that needs a strong identity and leadership. Meanwhile, whispers among Browns insiders hint at a possible draft day maneuvering, where the draft picks involved in this trade could help Cleveland stockpile assets for future acquisitions or to address other positional needs. Fans and commentators alike are dissecting every angle: how Garrett's presence might impact younger players on the Bears roster, whether his high-energy style fits with the team culture, and if this gamble could finally push Chicago past divisional rivals like the Packers and Vikings. Even with the confirmation, the trade is still unfolding as a story filled with what-ifs and strategic guessing games, with no shortage of drama and anticipation as the new NFL season approaches. Meanwhile, the media frenzy surrounding the confirmed deal has sparked a renewed interest in Myles Garrett's career trajectory and what his arrival in Chicago might symbolize for his personal ambitions and legacy. Industry insiders are contemplating whether Garrett views this trade as an opportunity to step out of Cleveland's shadow and establish himself as a definitive leader in a new city. Reports indicate that Garrett's leadership qualities and on-field intensity could inject a new sense of urgency and competitiveness into the Bears' locker room, potentially altering team dynamics in significant ways. Rumors also suggest that Garrett's contract negotiations are heating up, with Chicago eager to lock him in for the long haul, which could further influence the team's salary cap and future roster decisions. Social commentators and sports psychologists have jumped into the conversation, debating how a high-profile trade like this impacts player morale and performance, and whether Garrett's move will spark a ripple effect throughout the league as other teams reconsider their own defensive strategies. The Bears fans are optimistic, imagining Garrett as the missing piece that could elevate their team to a higher competitive level. However, this optimism is tempered by the realities of integrating a star player mid-rebuild, making this confirmed trade one of the most tantalizing storylines heading into the upcoming NFL campaign. As the dust settles on the trade confirmation, speculation continues to grow around the long-term implications for both the Bears and Browns, with many experts predicting this deal could serve as a catalyst for broader changes within the league's defensive landscape. The Browns' willingness to part with Myles Garrett, arguably one of the NFL's premier defensive talents, has sparked intense debate over their future defensive strategy and whether this move signals a shift toward youth and development or a complete overhaul. On the other side, the Bears' acquisition of Garrett is seen as a statement of intent, a clear message to the rest of the league that Chicago is ready to compete at the highest level again. Rumors are swirling about how this trade will affect upcoming free agency moves and draft strategies, with some insiders speculating that Garrett's arrival could attract other key players to join the Bears in pursuit of a championship. Fans and analysts alike remain glued to every update, waiting to see how Garrett's integration into the Bears' defense unfolds and whether this high-stakes gamble pays off. The NFL offseason is heating up, and the confirmed trade between the Browns and Bears stands at the center of a web of rumors and possibilities that promise to redefine the league's competitive balance in ways no one can yet fully predict. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you.